Thank you, gentlemen. Those are all good answers. Question number 4. At the start of the Obama administration, the national debt was approximately $10 trillion. As of today, that debt is rapidly approaching $16 trillion. In other words, each citizen's share is currently more than $50,000 apiece. What specific actions will you take to reduce the deficit in order to prevent the United States from bankruptcy or default, such as we see approaching in some European nations today? And Mr. Wood.
We need to hold to the spending caps that are currently in place, and over the next decade reduce those spending caps first and foremost. Senator Coburn was right on the mark last January, I think, when he took his fellow senators to task and getting ready to vote on an increasing of $1.2 trillion. And he chastised them that they hadn't reduced spending or canceled, reduced spending in a single program or canceled a single program in the entire federal budget. How can you continue to increase when you're not stopping spending in certain things? The EPA needs to go, the IRS needs to go, or by replacing the current tax code, or that I'm a fair tax proponent. Department of Energy needs to go away. The market can handle those functions by themselves. So by reducing the size of government, you're reducing necessarily the expense that associates with that government. My first actions would be to repeal or overturn the current tax code and replace that, to push for the elimination of the Department of Education, EPA, and the Department of Energy, and then holding, again, a cap on the current debt limit. Let's see, it was Congressman Langford, I believe, was on the House Budget Committee, said if we wanted a balanced budget anytime soon, we'd have to have no spending at all, with the exception of interest on the national debt, Social Security, and Medicare, just those 3 areas. So obviously we can't do that. So this is a decade, 12 years perhaps, to try to get our fiscal house in order. It's going to take that long realistically, but that's where you start.
Well, I think in order for us to fulfill what the voters want, they want us to cut the size of government. I clean carpets for a living, and everyone that I clean who's just an ordinary person think that government has lost sight of how to spend within their own limits. We do it as a household. The state of Oklahoma has a balanced budget amendment. If we had a balanced budget amendment on the federal level, we would naturally be constrained on how much money we could spend. But they don't even care about a budget. They just keep operating on thin air. And it's time that we hold, like it was said, hold people's feet to the fire. There's several agencies that we need to cut. But as Dr. Colbert, he was referenced, he has a book out called Back in Black. He's identified $9 trillion worth of fraud, waste, and duplication that we could cut right now. But you know what? No one's even looking at it. I'd stopped and talked to a congressman when I happened to see them. I said, Dr. Coburn done all the work. It's laid out there. Just pick a page. I said, who on the congressional side is looking at it? No one. You can guarantee I'll crack the book open and we'll start with those reductions right there.
If the U.S. doesn't balance its budget, we face a real chance of default in the next 5 to 7 years. And that's going to change Main Street, as you know. When that occurs, our currency is going to devalue. We're going to probably go into a depression, not a recession. And because of that, we're actually going to see an economic contraction I don't think that we've seen since the 20s. Some of my proposals, of course, I served in the state legislature as well. We had a balanced budget amendment. I balanced 10 budgets while I was down there. One of the other things I like that we did, and George has actually served on this committee as well, is we had sunset laws. Now, they do it more for agencies. My vision of it for the federal government is a little more encompassing, and that is that every federal agency come up for review, or if it's not reauthorized, it goes away. It's just like pulling the weeds out of your yard, folks. If you pull the weeds out, the grass grows back thicker and the good programs have more funding. But if you eliminate the programs, the problem we have, I guess, basically is that politicians come and go, but the programs live forever. And we need a process whereby we systematically eliminate government and keep it from growing. If there's nothing that eliminates government, it will continue to grow, it will continue to be more ominous as it has, and it will continue to take the life out of our businesses and our business cycle. And again, that is what has caused our problems. We need a way to systematically downsize our government. I think that's a way.
What we need to do in the Congress right now is pass a budget. We've not passed a budget in over 1,100 days. We are supposed to pass a budget every year in America, and it's been 3 years since we've passed a budget. If we don't pass a budget, we keep operating under the 3-year-old budget, and it's borrowing money every time we have a continuing resolution. If you send me to Congress, I'm going to work to pass a budget. Paul Ryan has produced a budget. It passed the House. It did not pass the Senate. President Obama produced a budget, and it did not get one vote, even by a Democrat. That's the first thing we have to do. We have to pass a budget. Why do we have to pass a budget? What taxes do we need to, what other reforms on tax code do we need to make? In America right now, 48% of Americans are not paying any taxes at all. The second proposal that I have is that everybody should pay something. This is America. When you have more people riding on the wagon than you have pulling the wagon, you've got a problem. The poor should pay something, the rich should pay something, everyone in proportion to what they make, but we all need to contribute to the greatness of this country. If we don't do anything and we do not look at the entitlement programs in America, by the year 2025, this is 13 years away, folks, every penny of our federal budget will go to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the national debt. Every penny. We're 13 years from that. Let's pass a budget, look at our entitlement programs so they'll be strong for those that need them. They are for the most vulnerable in society and for those who are retired. And if we don't address it, they're not going to be there for those that need it most. I'm willing to sit down to the table, pass a budget, and make some decisions along those hard lines that has to be made. Thank you.
I'm not going to repeat everything. I'm going to say ditto, gentlemen. Good job. So let me come in at a different angle. In 1996, our Republican House and Senate passed the budget caps. In 1997, they spent right past the very budget caps that they passed in 96 and never looked back and never slowed down for the next several years. Senator Coburn came up with $9 trillion. That didn't even get a sniff. Then they came up with a $4 trillion, not even a look. Then we had the fantastic 12, which we could probably come up with other names to describe that. They couldn't even find $1.5 trillion. When are we going to say enough? When are we going to address the root problem? We keep talking about all these symptoms. These are the symptoms. These symptoms have been around for decades. We've all seen them for decades. No one is going to do anything. Balanced budget amendment? Sure. But I'll tell you what, I'd be all for it. But I'll tell you what, I don't have the trust in the people that are up there to uphold it. If they can't even keep to their own budget cap that they set, and then spin right past it, folks, we got a moral issue. Immorality is the root problem. It's the white oak in the room that we all know is there, but we never address. And that's what I want to address. Because until they start voting morally in what they say they believe, the very Constitution that they swear to uphold, and the biblical principles they claim to believe in, nothing's going to change.